Just like we started with the running backs, the wide receivers that are notable on bye weeks, including tight ends as well. But Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jordan Addison, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Waddle, and Travis Kelce. This is murderer's row of bye weeks for wide receivers, especially if you also have Nico Collins, who could miss this week. Just a lot of wide receivers will not be available. So let's start with our number one guy, Darnell Mooney of the Falcons, coming off a monster week.
And we don't expect Devontae Adams to play either this week as well. I mean, he's right.
No,
so.
Definitely not for the Raiders.
No, exactly. That's
but maybe not at all.
Yeah.
Even if traded.
Even if traded, feels like
that feels fast.
That feels fast.
We'll see.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of big names not going to play this week. So how about Darnell Mooney? And I feel like we've talked about Darnell Mooney like 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But for the love of God, America, will you listen to us on Darnell Mooney? Like, we've been talking about this, I feel like since week 1 of the season. But still available in over 52% of Yahoo leagues. 24% target share, at least a 24% target share in 3 of the past 4 games. He's averaging 18.1 fantasy points per game. And they like to chuck it to him deep. 55% of his targets over the last 2 games have been on deep passes. It's a nice matchup against the Carolina Panthers this weekend, who are bottom 10 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. Feels like they're finally getting their rhythm down on offense. I don't expect Kirk Cousins to throw it 50 times for 500 yards every week, but he's throwing it a decent amount. And when he's not throwing to Drake London, he's often throwing to Darnell Mooney. And if he doesn't throw to Darnell Mooney, Ray McCloud now has back-to-back games with 11 or more fantasy points and an 18% target share last week in that crazy passing game against the Buccaneers. But deeper leagues, Ray McCloud is kind of interesting as long as we're talking about the Falcons.
Yep, Darnell Mooney has outscored Bijan Robinson this season, as everyone predicted preseason. And I think that there has been just an adjustment in this Falcons offense where now, this is the Kirk Cousins show. Everyone thought it would be the Bijan Robinson show. Everyone bought tickets to that show, wanted to see that show. That show doesn't exist at the moment. It's Kirk, he's flinging it. Him and Jordan Love both doing their Brett Favre impression at the moment. Kirk's just putting it up for grabs. Kirk could have had 7 touchdowns and 5 picks on Thursday night against the Bucs, which is good news for Darnell Mooney.
Josh Downs also on our list here, Jay. 60% available. He's been awesome since he's been back from injury and looks like the number 1 receiver in this offense.
He does. Now, I think that if you have Josh Downs on your team, you want to have the Joe Flacco show continue.
You're rooting for Joe Flacco.
Look, this is the reality. Joe Flacco is just a better passer than Anthony Richardson right now, and I don't think that is particularly close. Obviously, Richardson brings other things to the table. All indications are that it's Richardson's job still going forward. Shane Steichen said that. Richardson expected to play this week at the moment. But Josh Downs, I think he is, to your point earlier, Connor, last week, that he is probably the most talented receiver on the team, but we need to see Anthony Richardson be able to complete more than half of his passes.
Yeah, for sure. Since he's returned from injury in week 3, he's got a 29% target share, basically, 19 fantasy points per game over the past 2 weeks. He's the slot guy, right? And so that's always an advantage there. So we like the talent, and this is somebody who emerged. We've talked about him a few times on the show as well, and I think just people, because he was injured in the preseason, because they drafted A.D. Mitchell, maybe just they were sleeping on Josh Downs, but all this kid has done when he gets a chance is produce, and he's available somehow still in 60% of Yahoo leagues. He won't be anymore. Go get him. I agree with you. You feel better about him with Flacco than Richardson, but targets are earned, and he's earning a massive target share since he's come back in week 3.
A pass catcher with more availability, Jalen Tolbert of the Cowboys, 92% available. He's got a decent matchup against the Lions this week. Matthew, in week 5 against the Steelers, 10 targets, caught 7 of them for 87 yards. Of course, the big touchdown as well.
At least 13 fantasy points very quietly in 3 of his past 4 games. And I don't think will teams be able to effectively take CeeDee Lamb out of the game the way the Steelers were? Maybe not, but 24% target share, 89% route participation in week 5 for Jalen Tolbert. With Brandon Cooks on IR, so we know he's going to miss at least the next 3 games. Jalen Tolbert has become a viable number 3 wide receiver in fantasy on a team that's going to throw more often than not.
The mainstream media was hiding that for quite some time as well. Good call, Denny.
Yeah, Denny Carter brought this up on Friday's show last week. Good for you, Denny. Nice call.
Nicely done.
Yep.
All right, as we show the receiving leaders here in week 5 against the Steelers for the Cowboys.
And by the way, look at that. 6 for 70 for Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, 5 for 62. Not great, but 9 targets for CeeDee Lamb, 7 targets for Ferguson, and yet Tolbert, in a game that was fairly low scoring and slow paced,
He was the guy.
Tolbert still was able to generate quite a big fantasy day. So I think that speaks well of his ability to do so in the future.
Here's some deep league wide receiver waiver targets for week 6. Michael Wilson against the Packers. He's got 87% availability. Keon Coleman against the Jets on Monday Night Football, 55% available. Jalen Polk hopefully getting some more work for the Patriots as we're on Patriots quarterback watch as well.
Yeah.
Trey Tucker, another guy from our Friday segment with Denny that we've talked about. He's got the Steelers, still 82% available. And Juju Smith-Schuster, he's got the bye week, but Juju Smith-Schuster with the monster performance on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, another potential comeback player of the year, Juju Smith-Schuster,
Let's have
Jay.
a bit of
What do you say,
Flacco
Jay?
about him.
Yeah, him or Flacco.
Let's see it. Let's see it another week with Juju. But he's Patrick Mahomes' number one wide receiver potentially. See what Xavier Worthy does, obviously. But Juju's is he the favorite to lead the Chiefs in wide receiver targets the rest of the way? I'd say so overall.
Yeah.
Targets, yes.
Yeah.
Targets, yes. We'll talk about production. But 3 straight, just on some of those guys real quickly, Michael Wilson, 3 straight games with at least a 20% target share for Michael Wilson. Jalen Polk, you mentioned that quarterback change. If they go to Drake May, I think it's interesting. There's clearly a connection between May and Polk. He's now had 2 straight games with at least 6 targets, Jalen Polk. And Trey Tucker, the 2 games that Devontae Adams has missed, 93% route participation. Again, this is somebody Denny brought up a couple of weeks ago. So very interesting. We don't expect Devontae Adams to play another snap for the Raiders. So we like Trey Tucker in Deeper League. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.